To find slope, distance, and midpoint for 2 points, and it occurs to me that one of these points is missing a name. So let me drift over to the computer and call this point B. All right. Now we are ready. So I guess we should do slope first. Slope is rise over run, aka delta y over delta x, and delta means change. And what that just means is we look at how much the y values change from here to here for our numerator, how much the x values change from 6 to 8. I think we could probably see that's going to be 2, right? That's a jump of 2. And 3 to -8, that's a drop. There's a formula that lets us actually figure out the specific amount of the jump. It's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Every time we set this formula up, all we're really just looking at is how much these numbers grow by. This is going to tell us how much the x's grow by, and we can already see it's going to be a growth of 2. And then this is going to tell us how much the y values grow by, and it's actually going to end up being a drop. So let's go ahead and set this up. y2 minus y1 means -8 minus -3. And then x2 minus x1 means 8 minus 6. So, you know what? 8 minus 6 is 2. So that matches up with what we noticed, a jump or an increase of 2. And then that drop, -8, from 3 down to -8 is a drop of 11 spaces. So that's our slope. That's our y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, aka our rise, which is a drop of 11, and our run, which is an increase of 2. All right, okie dokie, let's do the distance. Distance formula is something, you know what, you just, at this point, you just have to have memorized. It is x1 minus x2 squared plus y1 minus y2 squared. Or you can see it written out a couple of different ways. Sometimes you'll see it written, you know, for example, instead of x first and y second, we can make the y's first and the x's second. Also, the order of the subscript sometimes shifts. So y2 minus y1 squared plus x2 minus x1 squared is going to end up giving us the same number. When you write out the distance formula, the x values do not have to be on the left. The y values do not have to be on the right. You can switch them. Also, you do not need to do x1 minus x2. You can do x2 minus x1. You can also switch that order. The reason you can switch x and y is addition. And when it comes to addition, the order you add doesn't matter. You can take x and add y. You can take y and add x. It's going to be the same. And then the reason subtraction, the order of subtraction doesn't matter, has to do with its exponent. Once you square something, the order you subtracted it becomes irrelevant. So whichever number you wrote first, it becomes irrelevant because of the squared symbol. We're going to use this first version of the distance formula for this specific item. So let's start plugging in our values. We're going to have the square root of, and then x1 minus x2 means 6 minus 8. We'll square that. Plus y1 minus y2 means 3 minus -8 squared. So it's super duper important. If this value is negative, you need to include that negative symbol, plus you need to include the minus symbol that's part of the formula. So there should be 2 negatives right there. Let's go ahead and start simplifying a little bit. 6 minus 8 is -2, so we're going to have -2 squared. And then 3 minus -11 ends up being addition. I'm sorry, 3 minus -8. Minus minus ends up being addition, so that's 11 squared. Let's keep on simplifying. -2 times -2 is 4. 11 times 11 is 121. And so when you add these up, you actually get square root of 125, which looks like maybe it even has a whole number square root. It doesn't. Let's simplify the radical expression a little bit. 125 is the same thing as 5 times 5 times 5. So we got our buddies that can break out of jail. One of them dies and one of them escapes. So we have 5. And then this 5 is left behind, so square root of 5. And I think this documents thing is kind of in the way. So let's just kind of say our answer here is 5 square root 5. The most important thing for this problem is just to be able to set up the distance formula, be able to understand where to plug in the points and simplify it. I'm going to go ahead and delete this space because there's a big mess, making an even bigger mess. We still have to find the midpoint. So anytime you see the word midpoint, there's a formula that goes with that. Just remember, middle for 2 numbers. This is only true for 2 numbers, or 2 points. Middle equals average. So we're finding the middle of these 2 points. That's the same as taking the x values and averaging them. So x1 plus x2 divided by 2. That'll be the average for x. And y1 plus y2 divided by 2 will be the average for y. So the reason the midpoint formula does what it does is because the word middle is pretty much the same as the word average in this case. So x1 plus x2 means 6 plus 8 divided by 2. y1 plus y2 means 3 plus negative 8 divided by 2. Simplify this a little more. 6 plus 8 is 14 over 2. 3 plus negative 8 is negative 5 over 2. That cannot simplify, but that sure can. So 14 divided by 2 is 7, which is not a surprise. What is in the middle of 6 and 8? 7. What is in the middle of 3 and negative 8 is actually negative 5 halves, which is, I think, negative 2.5. But let's use the fraction form. It's a little more eloquent. So if you looked at 3 and negative 8 on a number line, so here's 0, you have 3 over here, you have negative 8 all the way over here. The middle of that comes in right at about negative 2.5. That's what this calculation is letting us know. Negative 5 over 2 is negative 2.5. Let's assume that negative 2.5 will be right between these 2 numbers. Anyhow, that's our midpoint. If you plotted these 2 points, and then you plotted this point, it should be right in the middle of those 2. It would be kind of right about there. That would be our new point, our C. A, B, C, the midpoint. All right. That's number 4.